For centuries, the Vatican has been one of the most powerful and secretive institutions on earth. Behind its towering walls and sacred rituals lie archives locked away from the public, documents that few people are ever allowed to see. Some say these hidden records contain forbidden knowledge, suppressed history, and secrets so disturbing they could change everything we think we know about religion, humanity, and our past. From ancient texts that challenge the Bible itself, to unexplained artifacts, censored prophecies, and truths the world was never meant to hear. What is the Vatican really hiding? 1. Forbidden sciences and the lost knowledge of black magic. For centuries, whispers have circled around the existence of ancient sciences so powerful and so dangerous that they were locked away, never to be seen again. These weren't simple superstitions or primitive beliefs. They were entire systems of knowledge, precise, tested, and terrifying in their implications. Some believe the Vatican archives hold fragments of these forbidden teachings, sealed for the protection of mankind, or perhaps to maintain control. Among the remnants we still recognize today are astrology, the astral chart, and talismanic protections, like the red bracelet worn on the left wrist, a custom believed to guard against the evil eye. These practices, now seen as mystical or even harmless, may be the surviving embers of much older, darker fires. If these remnants slipped through, imagine what was lost or purposefully erased. Ancient civilizations knew far more about cosmic alignment than we credit them for. Babylonian star priests, Egyptian magi, and early Kabbalists believed the heavens weren't just symbolic. They were mechanisms that influence personality, fate, and even the soul's journey after death. What if their calculations were precise? What if the planets are not just celestial bodies, but forces that govern the energetic field of Earth? Many of these ancient teachings suggested that the position of stars could open gateways, spiritual portals, affecting mass consciousness. Knowing how to time actions based on planetary energy could theoretically manipulate reality itself. Some texts allegedly detail cosmic triggers, combinations of planetary alignments and rituals that could summon, bind, or transform entities. These rituals may have been recorded in scrolls, sigils, and diagrams now hidden beneath Vatican City. There are also references, vague, cryptic, in esoteric traditions about black mirrors, alchemical codes, and planetary hours used to open the human mind to higher or darker dimensions. This is not the magic of fairy tales, but the science of intention, vibration, and etheric manipulation, the kind of knowledge that could corrupt anyone who used it for personal gain. The Church, during its consolidation of power, went to great lengths to label anything outside its control as heresy or black magic. Hundreds of thousands were executed during the Inquisition, not merely for religious dissent, but for possession of esoteric texts, books that described herbal concoctions, energy practices, astrology, or summoning rituals. These texts didn't all disappear. Some believe the most powerful ones were seized and hidden away, possibly locked within the restricted sections of the Vatican's secret archives. Imagine a book that could teach someone how to influence others with energy, summon storms, or bend fate through ancient planetary knowledge. In the wrong hands, this could be catastrophic. Perhaps that's why it's hidden, not out of protection, but out of fear. If even fragments of this knowledge remain in common culture, like star signs or protective bracelets, what else was erased? What knowledge have we forgotten, or had stolen from us? And what would happen if it was rediscovered? 2. The Vatican's hidden wealth and the Jesuit Empire. Most people have no real understanding of just how wealthy the Vatican truly is. While the world is distracted by headlines about billionaires, the Roman Catholic Church quietly sits atop one of the greatest reservoirs of wealth in human history. And at the heart of that financial empire is the Jesuit order. The Vatican claims transparency in its finances, offering public figures for its annual budgets, charitable expenditures, and global donations. But what the public sees is merely the surface, a curated image. Beneath that surface lies a labyrinth of gold, art, land, investments, and documents that have never been publicly disclosed. It's said that even Vatican insiders don't have access to the full scope of its holdings. One of the most protected repositories of this power is the Vatican Library, a massive, centuries-old institution containing millions of manuscripts, letters, maps, and books. Many of these documents are not publicly catalogued. They are stored under the highest security, and some are only accessible by special request, often granted only to high-ranking church members or Vatican-approved scholars. These texts include ancient financial ledgers, sealed papal agreements, and records of royal donations dating back over 1,000 years. And then there's the art: Michelangelo, Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci, priceless masterpieces hidden in vaults, churches, and private chapels. The Vatican owns some of the most valuable artwork on the planet, much of it never seen by the public. Beyond the paintings, they own massive tracts of land worldwide, from churches and cathedrals to untouchable real estate in every major city on Earth. But who manages this empire? Many believe it's the Jesuit order, the secretive, militarized arm of the Vatican, often referred to as the Pope's shadow. Founded in the 16th century by Ignatius of Loyola, the Jesuits have a long history of deep influence in politics, education, and finance. Some believe they are not just spiritual warriors, but financial strategists, using their networks to funnel, protect, and multiply the Church's assets across the globe. The Jesuits operate like an intelligence agency, with hierarchical structures, covert operations, and missions that span continents. There are persistent rumors that they control or influence central banks, global charities, and even multinational corporations, all while pledging loyalty to the Pope and serving under a mysterious internal leader known as the Superior General, sometimes called the Black Pope. If these claims are true, that the Jesuits oversee a hidden economy larger than that of the wealthiest individuals on Earth, it raises chilling questions. Who really controls the world's financial systems? And what happens when spiritual power, political influence, and financial domination are concentrated in one organization, an organization that answers only to itself? The Vatican's official statements dismiss such theories as conspiratorial nonsense, but they never deny how much of their archives remain off limits and how much wealth they truly hold in shadows. 3. Forbidden archaeology and the lost truth of Atlantis. Mainstream history teaches us that civilization began just 6,000 years ago, neat, linear, and centered around Mesopotamia. But deep within the restricted archives of the Vatican, evidence suggests otherwise. Fragments of forbidden archaeology, locked manuscripts, and private reports tell a much older, far more complicated story, one that would rewrite everything we know about human origins. At the core of this hidden truth is Atlantis. The mythical continent Plato described wasn't a metaphor. It was real, a technologically advanced civilization that predated all others, possibly flourishing over 12,000 years ago. The Vatican is believed to hold confidential texts, maps, and ancient transcriptions that corroborate Atlantis' existence, not as myth, but as historical fact. The reason this knowledge is buried? It threatens the narrative upheld by both the Church and the scientific establishment. Even more disturbing is what caused Atlantis' fall. Geological and astronomical records, some hidden in the Vatican AS archives and others erased from public institutions, point to massive global cataclysms that occur in cycles. Every 13,000 years, the Earth experiences devastating upheavals, floods, pole shifts, and plasma events. The last one, around 11,600 years ago, aligning perfectly with the sudden disappearance of Atlantis and the end of the last ice age. These floods, referenced in the Bible as the story of Noah and echoed in every major ancient tradition, aren't fables. They are historical events deeply embedded in human memory. Ancient texts stored in the Vatican HKASS underground vaults allegedly contain parallel accounts from lost civilizations, records that speak of sky fire, great waters, and beings who escaped the fall, vowing to return. And here is where it gets even more unsettling. Some of those ancient beings may have made it off-world. According to suppressed interpretations of ancient Sumerian, Egyptian, and Vedic texts, many of which are no longer accessible in public archives, there were those among humanity's ancestors who possessed knowledge of flight, energy manipulation, and even interstellar travel. They left, but they didn't abandon us. They watch. This is where the concept of genetic invariability comes in. Secret documents and theological commentaries allegedly locked in the Vatican archives hint at a guiding hand, a force preserving the integrity of the human genome. This theory suggests that we are not alone and never have been. Humanity is being shepherded, protected from total destruction, but also kept from reaching our full potential too quickly. The question is, why is all this knowledge kept secret? The answer is power. If the world knew that advanced civilizations existed before the Church, that apocalyptic events are cyclic and predictable, that beings more advanced than us are still watching, what would that do to faith, to control, to the Church's authority? So instead, the truth is buried, literally. Beneath Vatican City, under lock and key, sits humanity's forgotten story, a tale of glory, destruction, and cosmic guardianship. And until that vault is opened, we remain in the dark. By design. 4. The erased civilization and the Vatican's role in historical deletion. What if our true history, the real story of humanity, was wiped out? Not by time, not by disaster, but intentionally, by those who took control. Hidden deep within the Vatican archives may lie the traces of an ancient world that predates all modern empires, a vast, powerful civilization whose very name has been erased. Some scholars whisper about it in fragmented writings. Others have died trying to reveal it. The Vatican has never acknowledged its existence. But if the rumors are true, this ancient kingdom was destroyed in an orchestrated collapse, and its memory was buried by a powerful alliance that rules the world to this day. In many ways, it mirrors the void century of One Piece, a forbidden period of history deliberately erased because remembering it would unravel the foundation of today's power structures. In the fictional story, the great kingdom was proud and just, but it stood in the way of an alliance of monarchs who would go on to form the world government, so they wiped it from the record. Real-world parallels exist. Some researchers believe a similar alliance occurred over 1,000 years ago. A coalition of religious, royal, and imperial forces may have risen together, not to preserve knowledge, but to seize it, to take control of Earth's history, culture, and future. This coalition's greatest tool wasn't the sword, it was censorship. Ancient books were burned, temples were repurposed, old languages, maps, and philosophies were destroyed or hidden. And the most powerful library in the world, the Vatican Library, became a vault for these forbidden memories. Not so they could be studied or preserved, but so no one else could ever find them. There are persistent rumors of Vatican-held documents written in unknown alphabets, not Latin, Greek, or Aramaic, and charts showing continents and civilizations lost to time. Whispers of a great kingdom that had spiritual, scientific, and metaphysical knowledge far beyond our current understanding. A civilization that lived in harmony with the cosmos and was annihilated for it. Why? Because the idea of it is dangerous. If the world learned that our history was deliberately erased, if we found proof that humanity once had advanced global unity, consciousness technology, or even off-world contact, it would shatter the authority of modern institutions, especially religious ones. That's why the Vatican, like the world government in fiction, bans certain texts, prohibits archaeological investigations in key areas, and excommunicates scholars who dig too deep. It's not about heresy, it's about control. And perhaps just like the poneglyphs in One Piece, there are scattered remnants, carvings, symbols, texts that tell the story of this lost civilization, but you'll never find them in a museum. You'll find them in secret vaults, under Vatican lock and key, guarded not for your safety, but for theirs, because sometimes the most dangerous truth isn't what happened, it's what was erased. The hidden letter that changed Christianity forever, tucked away inside a wooden chair, hidden for centuries, lay a letter that, had it been accepted, might have changed the course of Western history. It was a letter signed by every bishop in England, and it begged the Pope for one thing: to annul King Henry VIII's marriage to Catherine of Aragon. The story is familiar to history students. Henry VIII, desperate for a male heir, sought to divorce his wife so he could marry Anne Boleyn. The Pope refused. Henry, enraged, broke away from Rome and established the Church of England, initiating a religious and political revolution. But what most people don't know is that the English bishops tried to prevent it, or at least attempted to keep the Church united. Under enormous political pressure, they were forced to sign a letter supporting Henry's request, hoping the Pope would agree to the annulment and avoid a schism. That letter, once considered lost, was discovered by accident, hidden inside the very structure of a Vatican chair. What was it doing there? Why was it never acted upon? According to historians, the letter is real, authentic, and explosive. It represented the entire ecclesiastical body of England, pleading for a decision that could have prevented centuries of division, bloodshed, and religious reformation. But the Pope, bound by political alliances, especially with the Holy Roman Emperor, who happened to be Catherine's nephew, refused. The rest is history. The bizarre part is how the letter was found, not filed neatly in the Vatican library, but hidden inside a chair in the Vatican archives, not locked in a vault, not catalogued, not even preserved, just buried in woodwork, almost as if someone wanted it lost. The implications are massive. Had the letter been formally processed, it would have placed the weight of the English Church within the papal framework, backing Henry's request. But its disappearance, and the Pope's continued refusal, left Henry no choice but to act independently. Thus began the Anglican Reformation, the dissolution of monasteries, the rewriting of religious doctrine, and a permanent break from Rome that continues to this day. Some researchers believe the letter's suppression was intentional. Those factions inside the Vatican saw England's split as inevitable or even strategic. Others think it was simply lost amid chaos. But one fact remains chilling. A single document, sealed by an entire country's clergy, might have prevented one of the most defining religious ruptures in history. And it was hidden, not lost in fire or time, hidden. What other letters, agreements, or forgotten truths lie tucked away in furniture, walls, or false drawers inside the Vatican? If something so historically important could vanish inside a chair, imagine what else has been deliberately concealed to protect reputations, power, or the official story. The Anglican Church didn't have to exist. It was born not just from a king's rage, but from a letter that never reached the light of day. 6. Stolen knowledge from the Great Library of Alexandria. For centuries, the destruction of the Great Library of Alexandria has been mourned as one of the greatest losses in human history, the erasure of ancient knowledge that we may never fully recover. But what if not all of it was lost in fire? What if some of those priceless scrolls, manuscripts, and codices survived, not in museums or universities, but hidden in the Vatican archives, locked away to preserve the Church's control over what the world is allowed to believe. It's not just a theory, it's a suspicion long held by historians, researchers, and even former clergy. The Great Library was a treasure trove of knowledge, estimated to have contained hundreds of thousands of works from ancient Greece, Egypt, Persia, India, and beyond. It held early theories of astronomy, medicine, metaphysics, and more, much of it far ahead of its time. And when the library burned, through multiple events over centuries, not everything may have turned to ash. Some believe early Christians, or opportunistic looters, seized the chaos to smuggle out the most valuable, controversial, or dangerous works, not to sell, but to hide. Among these rumored texts were ancient scientific treatises proposing a heliocentric model of the solar system, centuries before Copernicus or Galileo. Imagine the implications. Proof that ancient civilizations already understood Earth's place in the cosmos, directly contradicting the Church's geocentric worldview that placed Earth and humanity at the center of God's creation. There were also likely medical texts, early psychiatric observations, suggesting that so-called demonic possession was not the work of Satan, but of the human mind. Mental illness, epilepsy, and trauma were all misunderstood in the Middle Ages, leading to torture, exorcisms, and executions. Had those Alexandrian scrolls been widely available, perhaps thousands of lives could have been spared. And then there were texts on sexuality, including writings from Greek and Egyptian scholars that regarded homosexuality as natural, spiritual, even divine in certain contexts. These ideas were completely incompatible with later church doctrine, which labeled such behavior as sinful and unnatural. If such writings existed, and the Vatican got hold of them, it would make sense to bury them deep. The Vatican Library today houses over 1.1 million printed books and 75,000 codices, many of them uncatalogued, untranslated, or completely off limits to public researchers. Among them, according to some whispers, are rescued works from Alexandria, works that challenge the theological foundations of the modern church. If this is true, the question isn't what was lost in the fire, it's what was saved, and by whom. The church claims it protects sacred knowledge for the good of humanity, but others believe the Vatican has assumed the role once held by the Library of Alexandria itself, the gatekeeper of truth, not to share it, but to suppress it, to preserve not knowledge, but power. After all, history isn't always written by the victors. Sometimes it's hidden by them. 7. The Vatican's art archives and the mystery of lost provenance. When people think of the Vatican, they think of churches, saints, and rituals. But behind its spiritual image lies one of the most powerful and mysterious art institutions in the world. For centuries, the Vatican has not only commissioned more art than almost any other single entity in history, but it has also collected, confiscated, and catalogued pieces from across civilizations, many of them now locked away from public view. Today, the Vatican museums hold over 70,000 pieces of art, including masterpieces by Michelangelo, Raphael, Caravaggio, and Leonardo da Vinci. But these are just the known works, the ones polished, labeled, and displayed. Hidden behind secure doors and deep in the lesser-known vaults of the Vatican's collection lies another story entirely, one of missing documentation, falsified provenance, and artwork stripped from its history. During the Renaissance and early modern period, as European empires expanded, so did the Vatican's reach. As archaeological sites were uncovered across Italy, Egypt, the Holy Land, and beyond, the Vatican often funded expeditions, and in return received artifacts and artworks of incredible historical value. But the record-keeping in those centuries was selective. While some items were dutifully catalogued, others were rushed into vaults, assigned vague descriptions, or lost in transit. In many cases, the documentation became separated from the artwork itself, either through poor archival practices or intentional obfuscation. Why would someone deliberately erase an artwork's origins? Because provenance is power. If a piece can be shown to have been stolen, looted, or acquired through questionable means, especially during colonial or wartime eras, it can become a political liability. Ownership can be contested, restitution demanded. But if the paper trail vanishes, so does the controversy. Even more disturbing is the presence of falsified documentation. Some art historians who've had limited access to the Vatican archives have reported inconsistencies, forged artist signatures, incorrect time periods, or records that don't match the materials or style of the artwork. These could be innocent cataloging errors, or something far more deliberate. There are even whispers that some of the artworks in the Vatican's collection contradict church teachings, or hint at uncomfortable historical truths, pagan symbolism, hidden astronomical codes, early Christian art that portrays Jesus in ways that challenge accepted doctrine. Without documentation, these pieces can be quietly buried, dismissed as unattributed, removed from the story. It raises a chilling question. How much of our collective cultural and historical memory has been edited or erased through lost or forged provenance? When you control the art, you don't just control beauty, you control the narrative. The Vatican art archives remain one of the most secretive collections in the world. While tourists marvel at the Sistine Chapel, thousands of works sit in silence, disconnected from their origin, their meaning, and the truth they once told. After all, history isn't just written in books. Sometimes it's painted, and sometimes it's hidden on purpose. 8. The Vatican and the Secret of the Fountain of Youth. The legend of the Fountain of Youth has captivated humanity for centuries. From the chronicles of Herodotus to the myths of Alexander the Great and the voyages of conquistadors like Ponce de Leon, tales of a hidden spring with the power to restore youth have echoed across every continent and culture. Most dismiss it as fantasy. But what if it wasn't? What if something resembling the Fountain of Youth was discovered and its knowledge was buried, not lost? Whispers from within the Vatican archives hint that ancient documents, some recovered during early colonial expeditions, contain references to rituals, locations, and substances said to extend human life. Not metaphorically, but physically. These records weren't placed in museums or universities. They were sealed in the most restricted section of the Vatican Library, far from public scrutiny. According to some insiders, certain texts recovered from South America during the 16th century, the very expeditions inspired by the Fountain of Youth myth, were quietly turned over to church authorities. Among them were indigenous scrolls and oral histories describing sacred springs, plant-based elixirs, and spiritual purification ceremonies that could return vitality to the bones of the old. Spanish clergy, operating under orders from Rome, are believed to have confiscated these records. Even more compelling are the rumors that the church found something real, a location, a formula, or a natural substance, but recognized the catastrophic consequences if such knowledge became public. Eternal youth isn't just a medical miracle, it's a spiritual threat. It challenges the very idea of mortality, divine judgment, and the afterlife, doctrines central to church control. Some researchers believe that what the Vatican possesses is not a literal fountain, but something closer to a longevity science, knowledge about regenerative compounds, perhaps ancient biochemistry or spiritual techniques long forgotten by modern medicine. There are stories of reclusive monks in remote orders who lived well beyond a normal lifespan, their rituals passed down orally and never recorded? Were they simply devout? Or were they practitioners of a deeper, hidden science? There are also ancient Christian texts, kept apocryphal, that refer to Jesus not just healing the sick, but reversing age, not just metaphorically, but physically. These passages were deemed heretical and never made it into the official Bible, but copies may exist deep in the catacombs of Vatican City. The question then becomes, if the Vatican holds even fragments of such knowledge, why suppress it? The answer is simple: power. A world where aging is optional is a world where the Church's promise of eternal life becomes obsolete. And if only a few had access to such secrets, it would create a ruling class of immortals, unchecked and untouchable. Maybe the real fountain of youth isn't water at all. Maybe it's a formula, a frequency, a lost science locked away behind Vatican doors, not to be destroyed, but to be hoarded. And maybe that's why the myth never dies, because somewhere, someone made sure the truth never got out. 9. The Templars and the hidden artifacts of power. The Knights Templar, warrior monks, feared crusaders, and legendary guardians of secret knowledge. Their meteoric rise, sudden downfall, and rumored treasures have captivated historians and conspiracy theorists for centuries. But what if the Templars' story didn't end in execution and exile? What if, in the shadows, they passed their most sacred artifacts and their secrets to the very institution that betrayed them? To this day, there are strong suspicions that some of the Templars' most valuable relics were never destroyed, stolen, or lost, but rather hidden within the Vatican, kept in secret vaults beneath the Holy See. In 1307, the French king Philip IV ordered the arrest of all Templars, accusing them of heresy, idol worship, and secret rites. The Pope at the time, Clement V, a puppet of Philip, publicly disbanded the order. Many Templars were tortured, imprisoned, or executed, but many more vanished. Along with them, legends tell of massive treasure hoards, sacred scrolls, and powerful artifacts the Church desperately wanted to control or silence. Among the items rumored to have been hidden are the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, documents detailing the bloodline of Christ, pre-Christian scrolls containing forbidden esoteric knowledge, maps of lost lands and ancient civilizations. Some theorists believe that before the crackdown, the Templars, forewarned of their coming doom, moved their treasures into hiding with the help of sympathetic Church insiders. Where better to bury something forever than inside the impenetrable Vatican archives, a place where access is tightly restricted and questions go unanswered? There is circumstantial evidence suggesting a quiet, secret alliance between the surviving Templars and certain factions within the Church, perhaps out of guilt, shared knowledge, or leverage. The Vatican had every reason to suppress the truth. The Templars had grown too powerful, too independent, and possibly possessed knowledge that could dismantle the Church's spiritual monopoly. Some former Vatican scholars allege that there are unmarked crates and scrolls in the lower levels of the archives, labeled with Templar crosses or sealed with symbols not used since the 14th century. These containers are completely off limits, even to trusted clerics. Why? Because the Templars didn't just collect relics, they collected knowledge. Ancient texts recovered from the Holy Land during the Crusades, writings from early Christianity, even scrolls from Babylon and Egypt. If any of these contradict the Church's narrative about Jesus, resurrection, sin, or salvation, then hiding them wasn't just protection, it was self-preservation. The Vatican has never confirmed the existence of these artifacts, but the Templar myth persists, not because of fiction, but because of silence. In history, where there's smoke, there's usually fire. So if you ever wonder where the Templars' treasure ended up, look not in the sands of Jerusalem or the caves of France. Look beneath the marble floors of Vatican City. 10. Stolen relics from the pyramids, hidden in the Vatican. The Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the last remaining wonders of the ancient world, has stood for over 4,500 years, guarding secrets mankind has yet to fully understand. But what if some of those secrets were discovered and immediately hidden? According to growing whispers from within the archaeological and esoteric communities, artifacts uncovered in the pyramids, especially Giza, have been secretly taken and hidden inside the Vatican archives. And the reason why? Because the truth of Egypt's past may be far more dangerous than we've been led to believe. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, European explorers flooded into Egypt, driven by curiosity, conquest, and the desire to uncover the ancient world. Among them were Vatican-backed scholars, priests, and preservation agents, quietly funded to collect not just religious items, but anything that could alter the Church's timeline of human history. While most museums around the world now display statues, mummies, and artifacts taken from ancient tombs, some items, the most disturbing, powerful, or theologically inconvenient, were allegedly intercepted and never made it to the public eye. Instead, they were shipped to Rome. There are rumors of metallic objects with unknown inscriptions predating any known Egyptian dynasty, star charts, and energy diagrams etched into stone tablets suggesting extraterrestrial knowledge or cosmic origins, miniature sarcophagi containing preserved remains of non-human beings, papyri describing advanced rituals for manipulating consciousness and accessing other dimensions, mathematical records that revealed the pyramids were not tombs at all, but power generators or spiritual machines. If true, these items completely contradict the Church's view of history, which frames civilization as a post-Eden, post-flood development barely 6,000 years old. Evidence that an advanced civilization existed thousands of years before biblical timelines would be catastrophic for traditional doctrine, and that's precisely why many believe the Vatican moved in early, to seize and suppress. The Giza Plateau has always attracted mystery, but in recent decades, archaeologists and researchers have reported an eerie absence of some early excavation records. Entire finds from the 1800s and early 1900s are missing. No photographs, no storage records, no documentation. And the Vatican, which was heavily involved in early Egyptology, has declined to release any of its findings. Why the silence? Because if the pyramids weren't built by primitive humans with copper tools, if they were designed by a civilization with knowledge of celestial alignments, quantum principles, or energy manipulation, then everything changes. Not just history, but theology, the concept of divine creation, the uniqueness of humanity, and the Church's timeline of salvation all collapse. So instead of releasing the truth, the relics were hidden, created away, labeled in forgotten languages, and buried deep within the miles-long shelves of the Vatican's secret archives. The pyramids haven't given up all their secrets, but perhaps they did. And those secrets are now locked in the very place sworn to preserve truth, or, depending on your view, to bury it. 11. The Holy Grail is hidden in the Vatican. For over 2,000 years, the Holy Grail has fascinated historians, mystics, and treasure hunters alike. Described in Christian tradition as the cup Jesus used at the Last Supper, and later believed to have caught his blood during the crucifixion, the Grail has been depicted as everything from a physical relic to a divine symbol of eternal life. Some believe it grants immortality, others say it offers divine knowledge, but almost all legends agree on one thing: it's missing. Or is it? Behind the sealed doors of the Vatican archives, there are whispers, persistent, chilling whispers, that the Holy Grail has already been found, and it's been hidden in Rome for centuries. The official position of the Vatican is silence. Despite references to the Grail in early church texts, and the countless legends that emerged during the Crusades, no statement has ever confirmed or denied its existence. But many suspect this silence is not ignorance, it's intentional suppression. During the Crusades, the Knights Templar were said to have discovered a powerful relic buried beneath the ruins of the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. Some believe it was the Grail, not a chalice, but a bloodline document, or a sacred object containing divine energy. When the Templars were later hunted and destroyed, many of their relics vanished. It's theorized that the Church, eager to prevent the Grail's power from falling into the wrong hands or challenging the papacy's authority, quietly took possession of it, not to destroy it, but to hide it. But why? What is the Vatican so afraid of? Some believe the Grail proves a narrative that contradicts the official doctrine, perhaps that Jesus survived the crucifixion, or that he had descendants, a holy bloodline that would threaten the Church's claim to divine succession. If the Grail is more than just a cup, if it's a key to hidden truths, then whoever controls it controls the spiritual narrative of the world. There are unverified accounts from insiders claiming the Grail is not stored in plain sight, but hidden in a sealed reliquary beneath St. Peter's Basilica or within a secret chamber below the Vatican Library. Others believe it's hidden among the Vatican's collection of unmarked religious artifacts classified as symbolic to avoid scrutiny. Some even say it has been encased in lead to mask its energy, studied quietly by an elite group of clergy and theologians sworn to secrecy. The Grail's legend persists because something keeps it alive, and perhaps that something isn't fantasy, but truth. A truth so powerful, so destabilizing, that the Church cannot afford to reveal it. If the Holy Grail truly does exist and rests beneath Vatican stone, then it is not lost. It is imprisoned, and the question is no longer, where is it? But why are they hiding it? 12. The Vatican's hidden role in global intelligence operations. To the world, the Vatican is a spiritual beacon, a symbol of peace, charity, and divine authority. But beneath the marble domes and sacred liturgies, there lies a far darker reality. The Vatican has long operated as a global intelligence hub, quietly influencing political movements, protecting war criminals, and trading in information at the highest levels. This isn't a conspiracy theory pulled from thin air. There is mounting historical evidence that the Vatican has been deeply embedded in international intelligence operations for centuries. And while modern eyes focus on agencies like the CIA, MI6, or Mossad, it's easy to overlook the fact that the Vatican was running global networks of information long before these organizations even existed. It began, arguably, with the Jesuit order, known for their unmatched discipline, global reach, and intense loyalty to the Pope. While the Jesuits were officially missionaries and educators, they were also informants. With agents embedded in courts, schools, and colonies across continents, the Church maintained an untraceable flow of intelligence, gathering secrets from kings, generals, and local leaders alike. But things turned darker in the 20th century, especially during and after World War II. Declassified CIA and MI6 documents reveal that the Vatican played a crucial role in the so-called rat lines, secret escape routes used to help high-ranking German officers and collaborators flee Europe. Many ended up in South America, often with forged passports, new identities, and protection from prosecution. These escape routes were not only known by Church officials, they were often organized by them. Why would the Vatican help war criminals? Some believe it was to preserve anti-communist assets for the coming Cold War. Others say the Church was bargaining for influence, turning enemies into informants. Either way, the moral high ground was sacrificed for strategic advantage. The Vatican Bank also played a role, quietly laundering money for intelligence operations and right-wing militias. Some funds were used to finance covert actions, supply resistance groups, or influence elections, all under the cover of spiritual outreach. And because of the Vatican's diplomatic immunity and sovereign status, these financial transactions were virtually untraceable. But perhaps most chilling are the claims that the Vatican runs its own intelligence network to this day, separate from, but entangled with, Western agencies. Former operatives have alluded to a secretive unit within the Vatican that handles blackmail files on global leaders, financial leverage over political groups, and influence campaigns tied to church interests. This isn't the Vatican you see in documentaries or homilies. This is a shadow Vatican, an institution that speaks in holy verse by day and moves pieces across the global chessboard by night. If even half of what's rumored is true, then behind every confession booth and cathedral window may be a listening ear, a transaction, or a threat. The church isn't just preaching to the world. I'm watching it, and from within the walls of Vatican City, it may know more about the world's secrets and sins than any government on earth. 13. The Vatican's hidden knowledge of extraterrestrial contact. While mainstream science searches the stars for signs of intelligent life, there's a quiet, unsettling rumor that the Vatican already knows we're not alone and has known for a long time. The Vatican Observatory, founded in 1582 and still active today, is one of the oldest astronomical research institutions in the world. Operated by Jesuit priests and astrophysicists, its stated purpose is to reconcile science with faith. But according to whistleblowers and suppressed sources, this observatory and the archives connected to it may house far more than star charts and celestial maps. The theory that the Vatican possesses evidence of extraterrestrial contact, possibly dating back centuries. Some insiders claim that deep within the Vatican's secret archives are ancient texts recovered from early Christian, Mesopotamian, and Egyptian sources that speak of beings from the sky who brought knowledge to earth. These records, often dismissed as myth or misinterpreted theology, may be encoded accounts of contact with advanced non-human intelligence. But the trail doesn't end in the ancient world. In the mid-20th century, during the UFO waves that swept across the United States and Europe, the Vatican reportedly began secret communications with global intelligence agencies, including the CIA and the US Air Force. Declassified documents from Project Blue Book and Majestic 12 hint at Vatican cooperation, or at the very least information sharing on anomalous aerial phenomena. Then there's the case of Father Corrado Balducci, a Vatican theologian who publicly stated multiple times before his death that extraterrestrial life not only exists, but is not incompatible with Catholic doctrine. He insisted the Church had evidence of this, evidence the public was not ready for. Some claim that the Vatican holds recovered alien artifacts or biological specimens quietly obtained through international partnerships, transcripts of interdimensional contact experiences recorded by mystics and saints and reclassified as visions to fit religious narratives. Ancient carvings and documents describing flying crafts, star messengers, and beings of light that match modern UFO encounter reports. Why suppress this knowledge? Because confirmation of intelligent life beyond Earth would shake the foundations of religious belief. Do aliens have souls? Did they know God before we did? What does it mean for humanity's place in the universe? More dangerously, if these beings were seen as creators, messengers, or even engineers of human life, it would undermine the Church's theological authority. The Vatican has a long history of adapting slowly to scientific discovery, and in this case, they may be decades ahead of the rest of us, quietly preparing for a truth that could rewrite everything. The Vatican's silence isn't denial, it's strategy. If they hold the keys to this cosmic secret, they may be waiting for the right moment to reveal it. Or perhaps they never will. Because sometimes the most explosive truth is not that we're alone in the universe, but that someone else has always been watching, and the church knows exactly who. 14. Hidden maps of pre-Ice Age civilizations stored in the Vatican mainstream history insists that advanced civilization began only 6,000 years ago with the Sumerians. But what if that's wrong? What if far more advanced societies existed long before recorded history, only to be wiped out by cataclysms and forgotten? And what if the Vatican possesses the maps that prove it? Among historians and forbidden archaeologists, there's growing suspicion that ancient maps, showing continents as they were before the Ice Age, are buried within the restricted shelves of the Vatican's secret archives. These aren't the fictional maps of fantasy novels. These are precise, geometrically accurate charts, drawn centuries before modern geography was even possible. Take the famous Piri Reis map, created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, which shows the coastline of Antarctica without ice. That's scientifically impossible, unless someone had access to pre-Ice Age geographical data. The origin of these source maps is unknown, but several researchers believe that copies of the originals may have ended up in the Vatican, collected during early religious expeditions, crusades, or the collapse of the Library of Alexandria. These maps, according to speculation, depict now sunken landmasses, such as the full outline of Antarctica before the last glacial shift, land bridges between now separated continents, a vast landmass in the Atlantic aligning with descriptions of Atlantis, Arctic, and Amazonian settlements, marked with geometric structures. Why would the church hide these maps? Because if made public, they would obliterate the current timeline of human development. If civilizations existed tens of thousands of years ago and had the technology to map the earth from above, then the entire framework of biblical history, the Great Flood, and mankind's spiritual timeline would unravel. In fact, it's believed that during the Vatican's expansion in the colonial era, Jesuit cartographers and missionaries were specifically instructed to confiscate, buy, or preserve any native maps, scrolls, or star charts they encountered, especially from South America, Africa, and the Middle East. These materials were often never seen again. Many suspect they were quietly shipped to Rome and buried beneath Vatican City. Some insiders claim that the Vatican not only has ancient maps, but annotated interpretations added by early church scholars, detailing the names, customs, and technologies of lost civilizations, including pre-Egyptian and pre-Sumerian societies that allegedly had knowledge of astronomy, geometry, energy manipulation, and global navigation. Maps are not just tools of direction, they are records of power. And when a map shows something the world isn't supposed to know, like a sunken city or an ancient coastline no longer visible, it becomes more dangerous than any weapon. So where are these maps now? According to some, they're rolled up in reinforced cylinders, shelved in temperature-controlled rooms beneath the Vatican, behind sealed doors, in sections so secret that even most archivists don't know they exist. Because if the world saw what was truly mapped before the flood, it would raise the most terrifying question of all: what else have they kept buried? 15. The Vatican's secret ties to global banking cartels. On the surface, the Vatican appears to be a spiritual institution, humble, pious, and focused on prayer, charity, and moral guidance. But behind the curtain of incense and stained glass is one of the most mysterious and opaque financial machines in the world. And according to increasing reports, the Vatican is not just a passive participant in the global economy. It may be a silent partner in the darkest corners of high finance. At the center of it all is the Vatican Bank, officially known as the Institute for Works of Religion, IOR. Founded in 1942, its stated mission is to manage funds for the Church's charitable and religious efforts. But that's the public version. For decades, investigators, whistleblowers, and financial watchdogs have accused the IOR of acting as a financial ghost ship, moving vast sums of money through untraceable accounts, shell corporations, and back-channel transfers. And it doesn't stop at mismanagement. The Vatican Bank has been linked to organized crime, political corruption, arms deals, and money laundering operations involving some of the most dangerous entities on Earth. The most infamous case? The collapse of Banco Ambrosiano in the 1980s, a bank closely tied to the Vatican. When it went down, it left behind a trail of missing billions, dead bankers, and rumors of mafia entanglements. The bank's chairman, Roberto Calvi, was found hanging from Blackfriars Bridge in London, pockets stuffed with bricks. His death was ruled a suicide. Few believe that. Even more disturbing are claims that the Vatican has deep financial ties to global banking cartels, the same institutions that influence governments, control currencies, and manipulate world economies. Because of its sovereign status and lack of outside oversight, the Vatican Bank has diplomatic immunity, meaning its records are virtually untouchable. No audit, no accountability, total secrecy. Some insiders believe the Vatican functions as a kind of financial sanctuary, a place where the ultra-elite can move money without scrutiny. There are unconfirmed reports of secret Vatican accounts held by dictators, arms dealers, oligarchs, and intelligence agencies, all disguised under religious or humanitarian labels. More alarming still are accusations that the Vatican uses this financial system to quietly control political outcomes. Donations, bribes, and quiet payments to religious organizations in unstable regions are said to influence elections, regime changes, and suppress dissenting movements, all while preaching neutrality. And then, there are the whispers about black budgets, untraceable funds possibly used to finance covert operations, advanced research, or the preservation of dangerous knowledge. If true, the Vatican is not just a religious empire, it's a shadow bank for the global elite. So why does no one stop it? Because exposing the Vatican's financial web would not just implicate a few clergymen, it would bring down politicians, CEOs, royals, and intelligence agencies. And that's a truth too expensive to reveal. 16. Demonology and interdimensional entities hidden in the Vatican archives. Most imagine the Vatican as a place of angels, saints, and sacred texts. But hidden deep within its forbidden archives are rumors of another side of the supernatural. One far darker, far older, and far more dangerous. Beyond theology and doctrine, the Vatican is believed to maintain classified records on real encounters with non-human entities, not just demons from religious folklore, but possibly interdimensional beings that defy both science and faith. This isn't just about exorcisms. According to several Vatican insiders, there exists a sealed demonology section within the secret archives, a restricted vault that contains first-hand accounts of possessions and unexplained phenomena, audio recordings and film reels from sanctioned exorcisms, ancient texts describing rituals to invoke or banish entities, mysterious symbols and languages not recognized by modern scholars. Some of these documents predate Christianity, originating from Babylonian, Sumerian, and Egyptian sources. They describe not just evil spirits, but intelligent, autonomous beings that can manipulate reality, invade human consciousness, and cross into our dimension during certain rituals, planetary alignments, or emotional states of vulnerability. These entities have many names across cultures: jinn, shadow people, watchers, or demons. But to the Vatican, they are classified under a system far more complex than public theology reveals. There are rumored to be 9 hierarchies of non-human intelligences with detailed documentation on how they behave, what they feed on, and how they manifest. Some are said to impersonate saints or deceased loved ones. Others create illusions, hallucinations, and emotional manipulations so intense they can drive people to madness or suicide. Even more disturbing are reports that the Vatican has conducted controlled contact with these entities through secluded rituals, vision chambers, or ancient summoning rites preserved in arcane texts. While the Church publicly condemns any occult practice, internally it may have preserved knowledge from groups like the Gnostics, Cathars, and even Kabbalists, groups the Church once branded heretics and destroyed. Why keep this knowledge? Because if these entities are real, if they are not just demons but beings from outside our known dimension, then humanity is not alone in the spiritual or metaphysical sense. And if certain symbols, words, or rituals can attract them, so can ignorance. There are also whispers that some of these entities may not be inherently evil, but that the Church has chosen to frame them that way because their existence challenges the narrative of a binary good versus evil cosmos. Some of these beings may simply operate on laws and energies beyond human comprehension, which is perhaps even more terrifying. The Vatican, it's said, has black books, hand-copied manuals, locked away from even most clergy, containing the instructions for interacting with these entities. These books are kept in sealed rooms, blessed regularly, and guarded not just physically, but spiritually. If opened by the wrong hands, the veil could tear. Because not all archives contain history, some contain portals. 17. Suppressed psychedelic rituals hidden by the Vatican. Long before modern medicine, long before organized religion, ancient people connected to the divine in a different way, not through books, sermons, or cathedrals, but through sacred plants. Across continents and cultures, shamans, priests, and initiates ingested psychedelic substances to enter altered states of consciousness, commune with higher beings, and uncover knowledge about life, death, and the soul. But today, most of those practices are forgotten, or worse, forbidden. Why? Because some believe the Vatican actively suppressed these ancient psychedelic traditions, branding them as demonic, outlawing their use, and hiding what they knew. And in doing so, they may have cut humanity off from one of the most direct paths to spiritual awakening. Buried in restricted areas of the Vatican archives are rumored to be scrolls and ritual guides recovered during the early Christian conquests of the ancient world. From the temples of Egypt to the mystery schools of Greece, the sacred rites of the Druids, and the indigenous rituals of the Americas. These texts describe ceremonies involving psilocybin mushrooms, ayahuasca-like brews, ergot-based elixirs, a precursor to LSD, acacia, which contains natural DMT. One of the most shocking theories is that early Christian rituals themselves may have included psychoactive sacraments, especially in underground sects known as Gnostic Christians. Some historians point to the Eleusinian mysteries in ancient Greece, in which initiates consumed a barley-based psychedelic called kykeon to experience ego death, cosmic visions, and direct communion with the divine. These rites were highly secretive, and they were abolished by the early church. Why? Because psychedelics remove the need for religious intermediaries. If a person can connect to God, the universe, or the spiritual realm directly, without a priest, bishop, or institution, then the entire hierarchy collapses. Authority shifts from the pulpit to the individual. Faith becomes personal, not organized. And that's a threat the Church could never allow. There are also persistent rumors that the Vatican conducted its own tests on psychedelic compounds in the early modern period, not to explore spirituality, but to understand how these substances affect consciousness, emotion, and susceptibility. If true, these studies remain sealed in classified vaults, never published, never acknowledged. Even modern documents reveal the Church's consistent stance, total opposition. But what's never admitted is the volume of ancient records they hold, describing psychedelic rituals that mirror modern near-death experiences, astral projections, and mystical insights. Some claim that this lost knowledge includes references to how reality itself is shaped by perception, truths once explored openly, now buried. The Vatican doesn't burn these books anymore. It preserves them, in silence, because a church built on control cannot afford a path to enlightenment that starts with a mushroom, a vine, or a cup of sacred tea. And yet, the knowledge still exists, locked away, waiting. 18. Suppressed astrology and celestial knowledge. Hidden by the Vatican today, astrology is dismissed by many as superstition, a relic of the past, used for entertainment or vague personal insights. But what if the stars once held a real, hidden science, one that influenced the fate of empires, the design of sacred architecture, and even the structure of the human soul? And what if that knowledge was intentionally buried by the Vatican? Long before Christianity took hold, astrology was sacred. In Babylon, Egypt, India, and Greece, it was a highly respected system of understanding the universe, not just the movement of planets, but how those movements mirrored events on Earth. The ancient world believed in as above, so below, that the cosmos and human life were intrinsically connected. But once the Church began to consolidate its power, astrology became dangerous. According to historians, the early Church did not outright reject astrology. In fact, many early Christian texts and cathedrals were constructed using astrological alignments, including certain chapels in the Vatican itself. Even St. Augustine, a church father, admitted to studying the stars. But something changed. Around the 4th century, as Rome transitioned into a religious empire, astrology was officially condemned. Why? Because astrology gave power to the people. It allowed individuals to understand their destiny without priests. It offered guidance from the stars, not from scripture. And so the crackdown began. Astrological manuscripts were burned or banned. Scholars were excommunicated or executed. Yet the Church didn't destroy all the knowledge. Instead, it was absorbed and hidden. According to persistent rumors, the Vatican archives contain translated copies of Babylonian star charts believed to predict planetary catastrophes, Druidic and Egyptian astrology manuals documenting lunar cycles, solar rituals, and stellar portals, documents on astrotheology, the idea that many religious stories, including parts of the Bible, are symbolic representations of celestial events. There are even whispered accounts of celestial prophecy scrolls hidden within the archives, documents that trace astrological alignments to plagues, wars, and the rise and fall of popes and empires. If these prophecies were ever revealed, it would confirm that powerful forces, not divine will, but cosmic law, govern human history. Some insiders believe that the Vatican still uses this knowledge, not publicly, but internally. There are claims that major church events are scheduled according to planetary alignments, that important decisions are made under auspicious stars. If true, this means that while astrology is condemned for the masses, it is quietly consulted by the elite. Why hide it? Because astrology empowers the individual, and in a system built on obedience, independent insight is a threat. So instead of promoting the wisdom of the stars, the Church labeled it heresy, and then locked away the very documents that once guided civilizations. The stars still shine, but the maps have been hidden. 19. The real purpose of the Inquisition: erasing forbidden knowledge. The word Inquisition conjures images of torture chambers, heretics burned at the stake, and priests rooting out blasphemy. History tells us the Inquisition was launched to combat heresy, to protect the purity of the Christian faith. But what if that wasn't the full story? What if the true purpose of the Inquisition wasn't religious correction, but intellectual erasure? Behind the scenes, scholars and esoteric historians have long suspected that the Inquisition was a coordinated effort by the Vatican to hunt down, confiscate, and destroy ancient knowledge that threatened not just doctrine, but the Church's control over human consciousness itself. Starting in the 12th century, the Inquisition expanded rapidly across Europe. Entire communities were wiped out for practicing heretical beliefs. But what did heresy actually mean? In many cases it meant practicing alchemy or sacred geometry, using herbs and energy healing, studying astrology or astronomy, reading forbidden texts from ancient Egypt, Greece, Persia, or early Christianity, teaching reincarnation, divine feminine energy, or universal consciousness. The targets weren't always rebellious theologians. They were often scientists, healers, midwives, mystics, and philosophers who had inherited ancient knowledge passed down from pre-Christian traditions. These people weren't a threat to God. They were a threat to control. According to persistent rumors, many of these heretical documents weren't burned. They were seized and shipped back to Rome, hidden, not destroyed. Some say the Vatican has vaults filled with transcripts from the Library of Alexandria saved before the fires, Gnostic Gospels that promote direct communion with the divine, books on sacred mathematics, ley lines, and the energetic structure of reality, ritual guides from the mystery schools of Eleusis, Isis, and Mithras. The Cathars, for example, a peaceful, spiritually advanced sect in southern France, were annihilated by the Church in a brutal campaign. Why? Because their beliefs included reincarnation, gender equality, and a direct relationship with the divine. They also allegedly guarded secret manuscripts, possibly even ancient records about the nature of the soul, the origin of man, or the truth about pre-Christian deities. All of it vanished after the Purge. It wasn't just a war on heresy, it was a war on alternative reality systems. By eliminating every belief system, practice, or knowledge base that didn't funnel through church authority, the Vatican reset the spiritual framework of the world. It monopolized salvation, truth, and history itself. And the terrifying possibility is this: the greatest minds of the ancient world may have already solved questions we're still asking today about consciousness, energy, the cosmos, and God. But their answers were taken, and what wasn't destroyed now lies sealed beneath Vatican City, behind locks, stone, and silence. Because sometimes, to build a new world order, you don't need to destroy the past. You just need to hide it. 20. The Vatican's control of time. Suppression of ancient calendars. Time is one of the most fundamental ways we make sense of reality, how we measure life, death, history, and destiny. But what if the calendar you use, the 12-month, 365-day Gregorian system, isn't just arbitrary, but part of a deeper manipulation? Many researchers believe that the Vatican, through its power over empires, science, and religion, has quietly controlled humanity's perception of time. And more disturbingly, it may have done so by suppressing ancient calendars that once aligned humans with the stars, seasons, and cosmic energies. Before the rise of the Gregorian calendar in 1582, civilizations across the world used systems that were astronomically precise. The Mayan long count tracked not just years, but ages and cosmic cycles over tens of thousands of years. The Egyptian civil calendar aligned with the Helaical rising of Sirius, the signal of the Nile flood. The Vedic calendar of India mapped yugas, vast time epochs tied to human consciousness. These calendars weren't just tools, they were spiritual technologies, connecting human life to the rhythm of the universe. They taught that time was cyclical, not linear, that humanity passed through ages of darkness and light, rise and fall, decay and rebirth. They offered not just the date, but where we were in the cosmic story. But the Church didn't want a cosmic story. It was a reset of humanity's temporal perception. Over the following centuries, missionaries and colonial powers suppressed indigenous timekeeping systems. Mayan codices were burned, Egyptian temples were reinterpreted, Druidic solstice knowledge was erased. The Vatican led many of these efforts directly or through proxy institutions. Even today, modern society remains locked into a 12-month system with no cosmic correlation, severed from lunar cycles, stellar alignments, or energetic seasons. Why? Because when people understand time in cycles, they become less afraid of death. They begin to see patterns, prepare for cataclysms, or awaken during windows of energetic transformation. That kind of knowledge makes people sovereign and hard to control. Some say the Vatican holds forbidden star calendars in its archives, documents recovered from ancient temples or preserved by secret sects. These may include predictions of great planetary alignments, shifts in consciousness, and even the return of ancient beings tied to specific cosmic cycles. Revealing these would validate suppressed systems and challenge the Church's absolute timeline of creation, sin, and salvation. So instead, the clock keeps ticking, linear, mechanical, controlled. And while the world rushes from day to day, unaware, the Vatican may still consult another calendar, a hidden one, written in the stars.